Welcome to Something Worth Saying. I am your host, Kristen Kelly, and we're just going to get right down to business. We're going to talk about real stuff on this podcast, and I believe that everybody has something worth saying. I've met so many beautiful people through the gift of music, and I feel compelled and called to launch this podcast, and it is my honor to use my platform to be a vessel for all of the beautiful stories still out there to be heard. I want everybody to feel welcome and heard and nourished on a soul level and feel like they are a part of this beautiful strand of all of us being connected, because we all laugh and we all love and we all cry and we all live. And life is messy sometimes. It's beautiful. It is so beautiful, but oh boy, can it be messy. So yeah, I just want to share my truth, and what may be tea for some is testimony for me, and I just want you to know that you're not alone. And I'm also doing this for little 11-year-old me. I am a small town Texas girl. I am from Lorena, Texas, 10 minutes south of Waco. You blink, you missed it. My daddy was a mechanic. My mama was a hairdresser. And then she worked at Lorena ISD, which is where I went to school, kindergarten through 12th grade. I grew up singing in church. I sang at church camp. I was in choir in school. My grandfather was a country singer, and I have 45s of him and his band, Sterling Kelly and the Hearts. My dad played bass. I have twin uncles. One played drums and one played guitar. And so I was surrounded by music, but music was never anything that was forced upon me. I actually played sports in school and was a cheerleader and kind of focused in on volleyball, and then ended up playing junior Olympic volleyball. And my JO coach was the coach at Temple College in Temple, Texas, and I ended up getting offered a college volleyball scholarship, and I thought that I was going to be a volleyball coach, and I thought that I was going to be the woman who was the sponsor for the cheerleaders, like the herded the cheerleaders around. And I guess the good Lord had other plans, and I really had no idea how big of a role music would play in my life. And another interesting part of my story is that I am a child sexual abuse survivor. The man who used to be my stepfather molested me for several years, and he'll get out of prison in 100 years. But yeah, he is spending the rest of his life in prison. And it's crazy. It's kind of crazy how manipulative abusers can be. And if you go to counseling, you work through all the elements of it. I mean, you can work through all the elements of it even if you don't go to counseling, but definitely counseling has helped me. I still go to counseling to this day, on and off, whenever I need it. There have been times where I felt like I worked through some stuff and I didn't need to go for a while. And then there's times where things come up and I need to go talk to somebody about it. And I've learned to just trust that process and work through it. But yeah, so the way it all started, my parents got divorced in 92, which was the beginning of my sixth grade year. And my mom started dating a new guy. I was 11 when they started dating, and they actually got married March 9th of 93, which was the spring going into the end of my sixth grade year. I was close to my dad growing up. I would follow him around the shop, and I was close with my mom and my sister too, but I just kind of always wanted to be outside. And when dad moved, when mom and dad got divorced, he bought property that teed off of the property that we grew up on. And so I would either crawl through the barbed wire fence to go see Dad, or I had a quarter horse for a little while. I'd saddle him up and ride over to see Dad. Well, my stepdad would not let us know that Dad had called. He also threw nails in our driveway and said our dad did it. He bashed the mailbox in and said Dad did it. And just little things that he did to slowly try to drive a wedge between Dad and us. And I have a younger sister, and he did things to try to isolate me from my mom and my sister. And it's all part of the manipulation to get you into a place where you feel like you can't go to anybody about anything. There were things that he did that I didn't realize at the time. You don't know. You're a child. But it was grooming. And he did a good job, and that's part of what he is. He is a pedophile. Yes, so the grooming started, and then whenever we were little, Mom would play with our hair and put it behind our ears, kind of to wind us down and get us ready for bed. And so I was 12, which I'm in 7th grade, and I was laying on the couch, and he was seated at the end of the couch, and he was playing with my hair like my mom did, and he thought that I was asleep, and he put his hand on my chest. And I froze because you're like, is this really happening? This has to be an accident. And so I froze, and then all of a sudden I just jumped, like you'd had this dream where you were falling, and you woke up before you hit the ground. Whew. So he pulled his hand back real fast, and I got up, and I went back to the bathroom. My mom was in the bathroom, and I told her what happened, and I was sent to my room. And then they talked for a while, and then I was called into the living room, and he apologized, and he said that it would never happen again. Nothing would ever happen again. But it did. From there, he continued grooming me and eventually physically, sexually abusing me. And I would ask to be not left home alone with him. And I would wake up to him in my room doing things to me for several years. And I was told that nobody would believe me if I said anything, and that he would divorce my mom and leave us with nothing if I ever said anything. And he ended up getting a job at the school and was a maintenance man. And he made friends with all of my friends, and the teachers loved him. And I would have to go to school and hear my friends talk about how awesome of a stepdad I had. And I just had to smile and live this secret life behind my smile that, again, I couldn't talk about. And you feel like you can't go to anybody about anything. And, as a child, you don't comprehend these are all lies. You believe what you're told because this is somebody who is supposed to be a parent figure and a caring figure and a loving figure. And at the same time, they do these horrible things to you, and you're isolated and you feel so alone. And so I wrote poetry to process what I was told I couldn't tell anybody about. And that poetry later became lyrical content for songs that I've written, which is a crazy full circle thing. But yeah, the man who used to be my stepfather molested me for several years. Yes, so that went on from the age of 12 to 17. And 2 weeks before I was supposed to move off to college, my mom and my stepdad were going out of town. And it was really odd because they changed the will days before they were going out of town. And it was going to be set up where I would be the legal guardian of my sister if anything bad happened. And he gave me an envelope and said, do not open this unless something bad happens, and do not tell your sister about it. And unbeknownst to me, he had given my sister an envelope and told her the same thing. And so my mom and my stepdad, they go out of town. And we don't know how long they're going to be gone. We don't know where they're going. He won't let us talk to Mom. And over the last couple of years leading up to this, he would make comments around their adult friends, especially if my mom wasn't around. And he would say, life would be so much easier if Cindy wasn't around. And similar comments like that you don't make about your husband or your wife or any family member or anybody. And I heard this. I was within earshot. I would be close enough that anybody that was self-aware should know that, you've got ears that could hear things that you say, and impressionable ears. Looking back, to this day, I think that they went on vacation to Laughlin, Nevada, and didn't tell us, and changed the will, and gave me an envelope and said, don't say nothing, don't open it unless something bad happens, and gave my sister an envelope saying, I just think something bad was going to happen. But thank the good Lord that something bad that I think could have happened didn't happen. So they're out of town, and my sister was playing summer league ball, and I worked at the bank. I was a teller at the bank there in Lorena that's no longer there. And I woke up the day that they had gone out of town, and my ear was kind of bothering me. So on my lunch break, I went across the highway to the doctor's office, and they were like, yeah, you have an ear infection, and they gave me some medicine. So I went back to work, finished my day, went home, and I told my sister, hey, I need to go pick up my medicine. Do you want to go get groceries now, or do you want to get something to eat this evening when we go to your game and go grocery shopping tomorrow? And she's like, yeah, let's do that. So I went to get my medicine, and I came back to the house, and we were set to go pick up my boyfriend and then go to my sister's game that evening. My stepdad called and was like, did you go grocery shopping? And I said, no. We're going to go to what? And I was like, no, we're going to go tomorrow. I got my medicine, and we're going to get something to eat tonight after the game, and we'll go grocery shopping tomorrow. Well, you're not going to go get your boyfriend. You're not going to Kimberly's game. We'll be there any minute. It was just really crazy. And again, we don't know where they are, and we don't know, he said he'd be there any minute. And so I was like, okay, well, geez, I just didn't go get the groceries, so we're going to go tomorrow. I'm 18 at this point. I'm pretty sure I can go get my medicine and some food tonight and go grocery shopping tomorrow. I mean, it's not that hard to try to be an adult. Anyways, it was odd because he said, okay, your evening's not happening. And then a few minutes later, he calls back and he's like, all right, you're going to go get your boyfriend. You're going to Kimberly's game. You're going to go grocery shopping tomorrow. It was a control thing. It's like, because we didn't do what he wanted us to do when he wanted us to do it, we were in trouble. Anyways, so that evening on the way home from the game, we got our food. We were just talking about how odd it was, how our stepdad was acting. And I ended up breaking my silence that evening. And I told my sister everything about all the horrible things that my stepfather had been doing to me for the past several years. We cried, and then I called my boyfriend and I told him everything. My high school boyfriend told his parents, and then they called the district attorney, who was actually from Lorena as well. And I was instructed to go to work the next day like everything was normal, which at this point I had been living the secret life behind my smile for so long. You know, you are kind of like, okay, I think I can do this. And so I got up and I went to work, and I told my boss that I was going to be turning the man who was my stepfather in for sexual abuse. And they said I could go home, but I didn't. I worked because you couldn't do anything. You didn't want to do anything that could potentially set things off or like alert that anything was not on point for what should be happening. And so I worked my half day because it was a Saturday, and then my sister and I went, I don't even think we went grocery shopping. I got back to the house, and at this point, they had instructed me to try to get him to talk about the abuse on a recorded line. This is something that was never up for discussion. You know, I said no, and it didn't matter. Trying to get him to communicate means I have to try to communicate. To get him, like, I have to talk about this stuff, which is not something that happens, but I had to try to get him to say enough on a recorded line that the authorities could get a search warrant. And with the good Lord's like strength and everything, I got him to say enough that they were able to get a search warrant for the house, and they found VHS tapes in a locked toolbox in the garage. And those VHS tapes contained videotaped evidence. He had hidden a video camera, and so it was no longer my word against his. There was evidence. So 2 weeks after my stepdad was arrested, the sheriffs, Roy Davis and Janet Smith was actually my elementary dare teacher, they extradited him back to Waco, and his bond was set at $1.5 million. He was not bonded out, and he sat in county for 2 years while we prepared for trial. And so that evidence that I said existed throughout the process of preparing for trial, I had to watch those tapes to help the district attorney line up to be specific about charges that were going to be brought forward. Again, there's evidence. And so that was heavy. And we had a week-long trial in July of 2001. I testified in court, and he just sat there. He never faced me. And I got to tell him that he never broke me. So a week-long trial, he ended up being convicted on 8 counts of sexual assault of a child, 3 counts of indecency with a child, and he was sentenced on July 12th, 2001, 20 years for each count. So 220 years in prison. Because those sentences are consecutive, which means you have to serve half of each sentence before you're eligible for parole. If and when you are paroled, you just start serving the next 20-year sentence. And then there were a couple of them that were concurrent, which means they're served. Two sentences can be served in one 20-year sentence. But his maximum sentence date is 9/13/2155. He has no projected release date, and he's actually up for parole this coming fall. It's going to be 9/12 of this year. And again, he was 33. I was 11 when the grooming started, and he was 34. I was 12 when the sexual physical abuse started. And just to give some facts, because I feel like it's part of my purpose in sharing my truth to also raise awareness, as is to give back, which I'll talk about here in a minute. But according to RAINN.org, which is the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, it's the nation's largest anti-sexual violence organization. RAINN created and operates the National Sexual Assault Hotline, which is 800-656-HOPE. That's 800-656-HOPE. You can find them online at online.rainn, and that's RAINN.org. And in partnership with over 1,000 local sexual abuse service providers across the U.S., they have programs to help prevent the violence, to help survivors, and to ensure that the perpetrators are brought to justice. Every 9 minutes, CPS substantiates or finds evidence for a claim of child sexual abuse. Of all victims under 18, 2 out of 3 are ages 12 through 17. 1 of 9 girls and 1 in 20 boys under 18 experience sexual abuse or sexual assault. There's something that if you haven't experienced it, or if you haven't been around someone who has experienced it, you probably are not aware that the effects can be long-lasting and they can affect the victim's mental health. Survivors are 3 times more likely to experience major depressive episodes as adults, and child sexual abuse survivors are 4 times more likely to develop symptoms of drug abuse. They're 4 times more likely to experience PTSD as adults. And I have some triggers I have definitely experienced throughout my life. There's horrible, vivid nightmares. It's affected my personal life. It runs so deep, and it's not just the act, but there's so many layers to it. The mental aspect, the physical aspect, the emotional aspect. It's just a very deep ripple. And over the last 30 years, RAINN has assisted survivors and loved ones in the millions. Over 4.5 million. 4.5 million people have been assisted through RAINN alone. Think about the people who never said anything because they still believe that no one will believe them. I hope you know that you're not alone. And I believe you. Few more facts. Child victims often know the perpetrator. And in cases reported to law enforcement, 93% know the perpetrator. 59% of that 93 are acquaintances. And 34% are family. 88% of sexual abuse claims that CPS finds supporting evidence the perpetrator is male. I hope you know that you are not alone. So, things that my husband and I are doing to raise awareness and give back to survivors of child sexual abuse is at our restaurant, Storyville, Texas. Physical location is 302 East Texas Avenue, Mart, Texas, 76664. You can purchase a Storyville tumbler, and all the proceeds go to survivors of child sexual abuse. There's some other things that we do, like we don't have a soda machine at our restaurant. We have cans, and we recycle all of the cans. We serve the drinks in a cup over ice, but we save all the cans and we turn those in and donate the money. And we want to start having some benefit events. Stay tuned. KristenKellyMusic.com, StoryvilleTexas.com, and would love to have you join the fight to end the violence. I believe we can do it. Now we're back into life. I did get married and lose a baby during the trial process. And then that husband, I found out, was sleeping with my best friend. So we'll get to that here in a minute. But I went to Temple College and was playing volleyball. And I was bartending my way through college. And we had a slow night at the bar. And we had karaoke. And I got up and I sang, and this gentleman pulled me aside afterwards, and he said, "Sing something a cappella." And so I sang "Complicated" by Carolyn Dawn Johnson. And he stopped me and he's like, "Do you want to be in a band?" And I thought, I think I want to say yes. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to. And this is in Lorena, Texas, small town. And so I said yes. And that started my 3-year stint in a classic rock cover band called Big Dave and the Freaks. And my sister, she had graduated high school at this point, and she was at McLennan Community College, and she was in her first semester of the commercial music program there. And so I ended up switching schools and switching majors, and I got a commercial music management degree. And so I'm in this classic rock cover band, and we played the Bruce Villetti Mayfest in May of 2004. And the late Brandon Jenkins, God rest his soul, miss him, love you, buddy, and Stoney Larue, and Stoney's fiddle player at the time, Jeremy Watkins, they opened up for us acoustic that night. And I'm divorced, and I've kind of been seeing this guy, and we went out to my boyfriend's property, and there's this big bonfire burning, and we're sitting in the bed of a truck, and Brandon and Stoney and I were writing down in flames, and Brandon goes to leave and got my contact info, and then next thing I know, a couple of months later, it's the title track for his album that he was releasing. And so then next thing I know, Stoney puts it on the Red Dirt album, and the Live at Billy Bob's album. And so this song Down in Flames changed my life and really fueled a deeper passion in me to continue on this music journey. When, again, the whole time I thought I was going to be a volleyball coach, and I was a cheerleader, so I thought I was going to be the sponsor for the cheerleaders. But I guess the good Lord had other plans. And so keep rocking and rolling. I'm getting my music degree, and I was singing with Brian Brown and the band that he had. He had a corporate cover band, and so I sang with them some. And I'm in school, and Joe Churchill, he asked me to sing harmony on some of the stuff that he was recording. And so I did, and through being in school together and singing on his project, he was like, well, do you have any songs I could sing harmony on those, and we could put some stuff together and start playing music together, which was so awesome and so much fun. And so that's what we did. And we became the Modern Day Drifters. And we had a lot of fun. And we got Americana band or group. We were gaining some traction. And then one of Joe's family members got sick, and so he moved back down to South Texas. And I continued as Kristen Kelly and the Modern Day Drifters, playing 150, 180 dates a year or more all over the state of Texas. The Texas Red Dirt scene was Corey Morrow and Roger Krager and Kevin Fowler and Eli Young Band and Wade Bowen and just everybody on that scene coming up. Fast forward to 2010. I am playing Dierks Bentley's Miles of Music at Billy Bob's in Fort Worth. And Paul Overstreet was on the road with Roger Krager. And so he was at that show and he sang. He approached me backstage and he said, I really loved your voice. I'd like to invite you to Nashville to write. And so I was like, what is happening? Am I having another one of those, do you want to be in a band moments? And so we get it lined up, and then the flood happens for that spring. So I was like, okay, Jesus is saying, you ain't going to go right with Mr. Overstreet. But we rescheduled, and it did work out. And so we get there to write, and I remember walking into the office at Cummins Stations, and I was like, I have got to bring a killer idea. I'm about to write with Paul Overstreet. I mean, he co-wrote When You Say Nothing at All and Digging Up Bones and On the Other Hand, There's a Golden Band to remind me of someone who would not understand. I don't know if my melody was exactly right on that, but I mean, okay, this is Paul Overstreet, and you got little old me from Texas coming in to write. And so I had this idea that I had been carrying around, and it was related to my ex-husband. And, he and I were from the same small town, and he graduated when I was in 8th grade, and I was a cheerleader, all through school, and he would come back to the high school football games, and he would invite me when I was a senior. He would invite me to their parties. I never went because I was like, what does this out of high school dude want with a high school girl at his party? Mm-hmm. So, anyways, I never went, but after I had graduated, I saw him at the fair, and he was like, why don't you let me take you out all those times you never came to them parties? And I was like, okay. We're from a small town, so naturally when you get divorced or when you break up, you're going to have to run into each other, and that sucks. And there were so many times that I would run into him, and a little part of me would fall apart all over again. And then finally I got to this point where I felt nothing, and I was like, damn, this feels good. Where the hell's this feeling been? Why couldn't you come along a whole lot sooner? So I had the idea of feeling nothing, and then I had these lines. There stands a man I used to love, his hands my skin they used to touch. I got into the room to write with Paul, and I was just talking about this, whole life experience, and those lines came out, and he just picked the guitar up and just picked right up with where I was at. And, dancing around the sawdust floor. I mean, it's just the imagery of the song is called Feeling Nothing, and the imagery of it is crazy. And I felt good. I felt good. I felt like we had written a very beautiful, real thing, and we kept writing. And I kept being introduced to other great writers and publishers and label folks and managers and folks in the business side of the industry. And Paul really was the spearhead for my Nashville career. And so I kept going back and forth, and I would meet these people. Well, then in October of that year, a big group of these people from Nashville flew to Texas to see me headline at Billy Bob's. And we go to supper, and there's managers, there's label people, there's publishers. I mean, it's crazy. So then I go back to Nashville in November of 2010, and I went in. Paul took me in to play for these label folks. Just he and I and a guitar. And I'll never forget December 15th at 12:28 p.m., 2010, Renee Bell called me and offered me a 7-option record deal. And I was holding a basket of laundry, and I just wept. I just wept because, again, I thought I was going to be a volleyball coach. And I don't think y'all understand how much I did not think music was going to be what I was doing. It's just crazy. And then in February of 2011, Renee gets fired. Okay, so we've been having meetings with the attorney and discussing the contract, and I'm about to sign a record deal. And then your person's been fired. And so I was like, well, that was fun. But Gary Overton, who was the president of the label at the time, he called and he was like, we love what you're doing and we want to move forward. You're just going to have a new point person. Jim Catino and Lisa Ramsey were A&R reps there at the time. And I loved Jim, and I connected with him about hunting because I spend a lot of time outdoors. And then Lisa, I absolutely love. I spent a lot of time already with her, with Renee. And so it just kind of felt natural to be teamed up with Lisa as my A&R. And I ended up signing my record deal April 22nd, 2011. And that's when I got my Believe tattoo because I'm right-handed. And I also signed a publishing deal with Sony ATV when I signed my record deal. I drew this Believe tattoo on the inside of my right wrist on a sticky note. And then when I signed my record deal, that I believed, I drew this, mind you, January 3rd, 2011. Renee Bell gets fired in February. And then I do end up signing in April. So I believed it. And so anyways, I got the tattoo, and at this point, we had worked out for John Grady to be my manager. And he's brilliant and amazing. And he had actually been the president of Sony at one time. And fun fact, he signed Gretchen Wilson on a bar napkin. And he let Miranda make the albums that she wanted to make. And it's amazing. And I'm getting to work with this person as my manager. And I felt good about things, too, because I was like, well, he's been through all sides of the business end of it. You know, he was the head of the label and now he's a manager. And so, yeah, I had Grady as my manager. I got introduced to Tony Brown. Tony Brown, he just got inducted to the Country Music Hall of Fame, y'all, this year. He's produced George Strait and Reba, and y'all just need to look up Tony Brown, and he's got a really great book, too. And he played keys for Elvis. Yeah, so Tony Brown and Paul Overstreet are co-producing my project. We get to recording, and Feeling Nothing is the first song that we record for the entire project. And it's the first song that Paul and I ever wrote. And I was like, oh, it felt good. It felt good. Yeah, we record. And it's coming time to pick a single for what's going to be the lead off. Well, at this point, Paul and I have been writing, a lot. And we were writing a song called Drink Myself Out of Love with You, which is going to radio in Texas now. So we were writing that song, and I made a comment in passing about the fact that I have an ex-husband and an ex-best friend. And Paul said, okay, we can shelve drinking ourselves out of love. I need to hear all about this. So in telling him what happened, we wrote the song Ex-Old Man. And it became my lead-off single to introduce Kristen Kelly to the country music world. And I was like, well, I had zero intentions of writing it. It's funny. I think because I was at a point in my life where I had healed from it, it was a lighthearted song. Like it ended up being a lighthearted song, because I have other songs where you can feel the fresh pain of it, or at least I can. That's how I felt it when I wrote it. But I don't know. This one just feels light, kind of, I don't know, a little bit of humor in it. When life gives you lemons, that kind of situation. Yeah, but so it became my first single, and it became my first Billboard top 30 single, which is crazy. And then we released this song that I wrote with Paul Overstreet and Even Stevens called He Loves to Make Me Cry, which is a big old bluesy ballad love song, and it was Even's idea to write. But that is a doozy to sing all the time. But yeah, that one died in the 50s, because songs about trucks and back roads were real big then, and big bluesy ballad love songs about the things that happen in trucks on back roads didn't really connect. So, we had recorded a whole album, but only ended up releasing a 4-song EP. And at this point, the label was like, well, we're not going to release anything else off this project. We're going to move to option number 2, which is album number 2. And when I had signed my contracts, again, I got a commercial music management degree from McLennan Community College. And I started out as a vocal performance major. And, halfway through the program, I thought, how many artists actually go to school for music? There are several, but there are also not a lot. And so I thought, okay, if I'm going to go, I'm still going to have the classes like vocal lessons and sight singing and ear training and music theory and history of popular music and guitar lessons. And then actually one of my classes was improv, and we met 3 times a week, and each semester we had a group of songs that we practiced, and we would go out and perform them, which is really cool, because you're getting education, but it's on the job training, which if you've never performed in front of somebody, it's intimidating. And y'all, if y'all could have seen, I still don't have good, well, I do all right. I think I've loosened up a lot, but in the beginning, I had zero stage presence. I just kind of was like, I don't know that I'm supposed to be here, but I love, this is fun, but I feel like I've grown a lot. It's just, but anyway, so getting out there and doing it as part of your curriculum helps build everything. And so, anyways, I had redlined my contract, and my attorney actually was like, who are you? And I said, if I'm going to get screwed or if something ain't going to go my way, at least I'm going to see it coming or try. I think anybody would want to be in that position. So I got a commercial music management degree. So I did the business side of the industry education as well. which involves some of the legal aspect and writing contracts and understanding them. And so the label, we were going to move to option number 2, which was album number 2, and I got a advance according to my contract for each option. You get half of the money when the option starts, and then you get the other half of the money when the project is completed and turned in. So the option may start, and you may have the project recorded within the year, but it could be 2 years before it's fully recorded. For example, $45,000. You get $22,500 when the option starts. And then when you turn the project in and it's accepted by the label, you get the remainder of that $45,000 for that option. And that money has to last you, it's called an artist advance, and that money has to last you the life of the option or the album. Well, you could get 2 to 3 singles off of an album, and there's 52 weeks in a year. I don't know. If that's wrong, don't come at me. I don't math. Ex Old Man, it hung out on the charts for 30-something weeks, I think. I'm not looking right at it, so don't quote me. And it's been a hot minute. If it takes you a year to record, and then you release a single, and the single is out for 30-something, 40, however many months, it's starting to add up. So that $45,000 is going to be stretched real thin. And so there was a situation of not paying the advance, and I don't want to be on the hook for money that I don't see. And we had some meetings and amicably parted ways, and I ended up parting ways with the publishing company, Sony ATV as well. And I'm so grateful for the entire experience. I learned a lot. I had a lot of firsts. I got to experience a lot. My music was shared on a level that I never dreamt. I didn't think I was going to be in music, y'all. Again, didn't think I was going to be in music. And here I am, Kristen Kelly from Lorena, Texas, has just completed a record deal with Stoney Nashville. So I stick around town. I ended up signing another publishing deal, and that didn't work out so well. But I got my songs back, and I just was able to work with Sony this past year. I was out of the Kristen Kelly EPs, and I had played my entire Sony album for my husband, Bradley. And he was like, what are you doing with this music? Like, can you try to do something with this music? And so I needed more EPs, and I reached out to Sony, and I was connected with Tim Smith at Legacy Recordings, which is the catalog division for Sony in New York. And I got to work with Tim Smith, and I was able to license the entire album that I recorded whenever I was with Sony, and then the 2 sides that I got to record with Dave Cobb for option number 2. And I was able to get that stuff mastered, working with Tim Smith, licensed, and I now have vinyl and CDs. And it's also available everywhere you get your music digitally. And it just blows my mind, the places that music has taken me. And here I am talking to you on my Something Worth Saying podcast, y'all. I'm sharing my truth, and the journey through it all. There have been a few things that have been shared with me that are kind of mottos in my life, and I believe are something worth saying. And I don't know if y'all have heard of the Wilder Blue, but they have a song. Y'all should check them out. Pass It On Down, and it's so great. And it's this idea to share the wisdom and the insight and all the little things. Speak it. And so I'm sharing my truth and I'm sharing my journey because I feel like it's part of my purpose and I have the ability to do so. And therefore, I have the responsibility to do so. And that is a quote that I heard from a friend named Leaf. He's out in Montana. If you have the ability to do something, you have the responsibility to do it. That was great. Beth Tobin, the district attorney who prosecuted the man who used to be my stepfather, the day that I testified at court, she gave me a card, and I still have it to this day. And on the front of that card, it said, "Courage is hope that has said its prayers." And that has stuck with me. And I actually wrote a song called Hope Floats with my friend Kat Higgins because I do believe that hope floats. And I got an anchor tattoo because of Hebrews. Hope anchors the soul, Bible verse. And belief and hope are the things that have gotten me through. Belief in that the good Lord doesn't give you anything you can't handle, and what you're given helps either shape who you are or define you. And I choose to be like clay, and I want to be refined, and I want to keep getting better. And you can't grow if you stay in your comfort zone. And my dear friend Anna Redmond, she was my stylist for so many years. She told me years ago, "Don't get distracted by the noise." That's another good one that I love. There's so many nuggets that have been passed down to me, and I feel like it's my responsibility to share those and share my truth for 11-year-old me, and for anybody and everybody out there that feels alone, because at any given point in our lives, we can be getting over someone or something. I have a song called Getting Over Someone that I wrote with my buddy Ben Danaher, and I write about life, and I have plans to do more, to give back, and to raise awareness. And I just want to encourage each and every one of you to please lead with love every chance you get, because you have no idea when the slightest bit of kindness could change the trajectory of someone's life. I love y'all. Y'all be blessed.